Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you. And how are you doing today? So let's confirm that we're all on the same page here and kindly confirm you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly by typing hi in the comment section so that we can get this party started. And let me know if the audio quality is okay and no background noises. All right, thank you very much, Carrie. Good morning to you. Good morning, 901. Good morning, 842. Uh, okay. All right, that's good. That's good. So we are good to go right now. Is there anyone else in the house? Okay, 283, good morning. 878, good morning. 842, hello, good morning. 489, beautiful. Thank you very much. So let's get the session started. I want to welcome you all to yet another promising session of Extreme Speed Live, hosted by my humble self, Sheriff Daramola. As usual, on the next 1 hour, I will be taking you on a trading journey where we shall be evaluating the financial market using technical parameters to identify trading opportunities lining up for us during the New York session today. In as much as we are getting ourselves prepared for the New York session, and we also have some pairs that we have been monitoring since the beginning of the week, definitely we are going to take a quick look at those pairs before we start making decision on those pairs. We want to see how well those pairs are doing, after which I will be giving advices on how I intend to trade the pairs during the New York session today. And before I do that, I think, oh, somebody says my voice is double. Is that true? Let me confirm. Well, can somebody else tell me it's doubling? And because I didn't get any indication of such, but I would advise middle 986 to probably restart your app and see if the situation still persists. Okay, please do that at all. All right, someone says it's not. Please try and restart your app middle 986 and let me know if the problem persists. Okay, so we shall be looking at those pairs that we've been monitoring since the beginning of the week. We are going to look at how well those pairs are doing, and then I will be giving you my thought process on how I intend to trade this pair during the New York session today. And also, I also want to share with you something I saw. I saw a setup which I also want to share with you on the GBP pairs. You all know that the GBP pairs has been dropping since the beginning of the week. I think we have another setup we could take advantage of today. So before I go into the pairs we've been monitoring since the beginning of the week, I would love to share with you what my plans is going to be on two of the major British pairs, which we shall be looking at, and you might want to choose whichever of the two that most suits your trading plan. So let's quickly look at the GBP pairs here. I want to look at the GBP USD first of all, and let's see what is happening on the GBP USD. So I already have an entry right below the 1.06800 area where I'm looking to sell the GBP USD. And if we look at the economic calendar today, we have the Fed's chair Powell's speech coming up in, let's say, 3 hours 15 minutes from now, and we want to be anticipating that as well, because definitely this speech is also going to have a major impact on price movement, especially on the USD pairs for today. So let's quickly look at the GBP USD and how we got to this point. So I have an entry point here which appears to have been triggered at this point. And how did I get to this point? How did I get to this setup here? So let's scale up a little into the daily time frame and let's see what has been happening on the higher time frame before we see what how we got to the conclusion of selling the GBP USD. Now look at the daily time frame here. We can see that price has consistently been on a very strong bearish momentum. As you can see, the bearish trend line after connecting the series of lower highs here to give us that resultant bearish trend line. However, if we look at the structure here around the 1.1500 level, which is more or less a very strong psychological level, which has actually been holding price supported since the beginning of the month, which was finally broken during the, I think during the course of last week trading session, to continue to send price go to the downside, giving us a very strong bearish signal at this point. And well, definitely most people have been looking forward to probably price will come back to retest the structure to send price go to the downside, but that has not happened since the beginning of this week. And let's see on the 1 hour time frame what has really been happening since the beginning of the week. Well, if you look at the current structure we have here on the 1 hour time frame to identify how participant has been relating with this structure since the beginning of the week, we can see that price started the week at around the 1.07880 area. Price started around this area, but it's got to the 1.08500 area, and we can see as soon as price got into the 1.08500 area, we saw this bearish momentum to the downside. In fact, this move was very, very strong that took out all the buy position that is likely coming in at around the 1.06800. And if we look at what happened here, we can see price came back again into the 1.08500 area, rejected it a couple of times before it went to the downside again, and then price came back again during the course of the UK session yesterday, and we saw multiple rejection of this level to give us a clue of a possible selling momentum, the possible strength of the sellers at this point in the market. And since then, price has continued to find lower lows and lower highs, as you can see with the current structure we have here. Let me show you. So we had this move to the downside, price came back up, had a little breakdown of the 1.06800 area, price came back again into the structure, and since then we have been seeing multiple rejection in the last couple of hours. So one thing I'm saying here is that the current structure we have here is looking very, very bearish, and since the beginning of the week we have been having this bearish momentum right below the 1.08500 area, and as a result of this, I was able to connect the series of lower highs here to give me this bearish trend line. So what I want to be looking forward to during the New York session today is price continue to respect that area. So I have identified a key level here at the 1.06800 area where I want to be looking for selling momentum. So what this simply means here is that as long as price continue to rally right below the 1.06800 area, I want to be selling the Gbp USD. So this is what we have here. And one thing I also want to share with you here on the 1 hour time frame, what has been happening here in the last 5-10 minutes now. We saw this move to the upside. We saw this sharp move to the upside here, which is more or less an attempt by the buyers to break above that trend line. So let's see what happens here. Is price going to break above that bearish trend line? But as long as price remains right below the 1.06800 area, I want to be selling. And let me scale down to the 1 hour to the lower time frame to actually see what is happening on this candle here, to see what structure we are having here. So this is the 5 minutes time frame, and on the 5 minutes time frame we can see that price has been caught within a consolidation phase here. In the last 1 to 2 hours now, we see price caught within a consolidation phase. So what I'm saying right now is this. So let's look at below the 1.06600 level. So we want to see price come right down, break down, do a retest, then we join the decline to the downside here on the 5 minutes time frame. So let's see what happens in the next couple of minutes, or on the next 30 minutes they are about to see how this is going to play out. So we're still going to be around here to monitor this movement. So that is that on the Gbp USD. If you have any questions whatsoever regarding what I've just explained so far, feel free to drop in your comments, your inquiries in the comment section. Okay, I can see that middle 986 says that it's fine now. Oh great, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the Gbp Jpy. So you might want to choose either of these two. I also have a selling momentum right on the Gbp Jpy as well. If we look at what we have on the 1 hour time frame, and it appears that the structure is going to be what will I say? It's going to be correlative at this point. As you can see, we almost have the same structure here. And look at what has happened since the beginning of this week. We saw the rejection of the 155130 area. Price started the week around this area. We saw this impulsive move to the downside. Price came into as far as the 149 area, which is about how many pips that is? That's about 600 pips thereabout. So it's quite a very huge move since the beginning of the week, and the week started on a bearish tone. So what I'm thinking is that price is likely going to continue in that direction going forward. We saw this move to the downside. Price came right back into the 155.100 level, which, as you can see, has been consistent since the beginning of the week. We saw how as soon as price comes within this area, every attempt by the buyers to push price right above the 156 area has been met with stiff resistance since the beginning of the week. So I'm of the opinion that price is likely going to be tending towards the downside here on the GBP Jpy as well. So you can see it has the same structure with what we have on the GBP USD. So as a result of these lower highs here, I was able to connect the series of lower highs to give us this result and bearish trend line, as you can see on your screen right now. And I want to continue to see price rally below the trend line to look for selling momentum on the GBP Jpy. And also, if to make our job easier during the New York session, I was able to identify a key level right around the 154.500 area, and I will share with you why I have that key level around that area. Well, if you look in the past, we can see how this level has been a major determinant of price action since the beginning of the week. We can see around this area we saw the significant breakdown of that level. We saw how price came back into this area with an attempt to push price to the downside, but it was met with stiff resistance by the buyers to push price right to the upside. So at this point in time, participants are actually thinking that they need to buy the Gbp Jpy, and look at what happened here. We saw multiple rejection by the buyers here trying to push price to the upside, though it was successful at one point. A price came to this point. We saw the rejection by the sellers here. Price came back into this point again, but attempt by the buyers to push price to the upside was met with stiff resistance by the sellers, where sellers were able to break down that level one more time. So we can see how important that level has been in the past. And one thing I want to be looking forward to right now is to price to come right below this level. So we scale down to our 5 minutes time frame or the 15 minutes time frame. We'll look out for the breakdown of the 154.500 area, a retest of structure to give us further confirmation. Then we could actually be joining the decline to the downside with a take profit target sitting right around the 149 area. And why are we having the 149 area as our take profit target? Well, if we look into the past here, we can see that we have a structure here where participants at one point in time had gathered here to buy the GBP. So let's see how price is going to relate with this level in the nearest future. So we have our take profit target on a long-term perspective right around the 149 area, which will be dovetailing to, let's see how many pips that is. That's around 490 pips. That's massive as long as price move in our direction. So let's see how price action plays out on this one. So that is that on the Gbp Jpy. So I just need to quickly share this because it appears that the movement is going to be very, very massive. So I don't want to be doing that at the later part of the session before we miss out on the possible opportunity of taking advantage of the trade. So what I'm saying here is we want to continue to wait for price to oscillate right below the 154.500 area, a retest of structure on our lower time frame. Then we can actually join that decline to the downside. So if you have any question regarding what I've just explained so far, feel free to drop in your comments in the comment section below. So those are the two pairs, Gbp Jpy and the Gbp Usd, whichever suits your trading style or probably the pairs you trade. You can take either of the two. It looks more or less correlative here. Then another thing we should also take note here is this: if at the end of the day we have a significant break above of this trend line, price breaks out of that trend line to the upside here, and then a retest of structure happen, there is a likelihood that we could be having a bullish momentum from here. But one thing I will say here is that a bullish momentum at this point might not be valid unless we see a significant breakout of the 1.1 08500 area, which has been a selling niche since the beginning of the week. So one thing I'll be saying here is that if price breaks right above that structure, then a retest of that area might be a signal that price is doing a correction to the upside, considering the long-term bearish momentum here. So let's look at how price action plays out in the next hour. Okay, so that is that. So let's go back to the pairs we've been monitoring since the beginning of the week, and the first pair we've been looking at is the US oil. So what's happening on the US oil in the last 24 hours? So as you can see here on the US oil, let's quickly do a replay of what our expectations were yesterday before we go on into the details for today. So as at yesterday, we were around where was that? Yesterday we were around here yesterday. Remember, we were around this point yesterday, and we were expecting that price is going to come back into our sell window here, where we want to be taking advantage of a sell opportunity right to the downside here. And one thing we have noticed here since the New York session yesterday, we saw multiple rejection happening within the sell window around this area to support that bearish buyers we've been expecting. And lo and behold, price moved as expected. Remember, I told you I was in this trade on Monday. We saw this move to the downside. Price came back to do a correction back into the $79 level, which is our sell window at this point, and then we saw this move to the downside. Immediately price moved into this area, and I cited this multiple rejection around this area. I think I shared it on my TradingView platform. We saw the multiple rejection of this level as price was unable to get to the previous low here. What did I do? I had to move my stop loss right above this area, so I was able to take about how many pips that is from this point around here, around 200 pips thereabout, because I had two positions running since yesterday. So how did you do this? Were you able to take some profit before price came back into our entry zone? Let me know in the comment section if you are able to do that. And right now price is right back within the sell window, hereby coming back into where we started the week at. So at this point in time, how do we intend to trade the US oil? Is the possibility of a bearish momentum still very valid here, or is there a possibility that this move that we've been seeing in the last 24 hours is going to be leading into a reversal pattern that's likely going to be sending price to the upside? So this is what we are going to be looking at today. So let's dive in and see what is happening on the daily time frame. So scaling up into the daily time frame, let's quickly have an holistic perspective of what's going on here before we make the decision for today. So now on the daily time frame, like I've always shared with you since the beginning of the week, we can see how price has consistently been on a bullish momentum in the last 2 years, and as a result of this, we were able to identify this bullish trend line after connecting the series of higher lows here to give us that resultant bullish trend line, as you can see on your screen. And well, when we zoom into what has been happening in the last couple of months now, we can see the next touch price came back to test that bullish trend line with an attempt to continue to the upside, but this was met with stiff resistance by the sellers as we saw price break down, retest that bullish trend line to continue to send price to the downside. So since the beginning of the month now, we've been witnessing bearish momentum here on the US oil. Now at one point in time during the course of last week, we saw the $83 level old price action supported before we cited a significant breakdown of that structure to give us a bearish continuation. So we had the breakdown of this level last week to give us that bearish momentum to the downside. So as we head into the new week, to New York session today, we had this move. Price came back here. We took this move right into this point, and what we have been witnessing in the last 48 hours now looks more like a bullish momentum here. So there is a likelihood that this could turn out to be a reversal pattern with the intention of coming back to do a retest of structure that was broken yesterday. Remember, we had a retest, we have a breakdown of structure last week, so there is a likelihood that price will come back to do a retest of structure here before the trend continuation to the downside might be happening. So going into the New York session today, are we going to wait a whole, how many pips is that? Are we going to be waiting a whole 300 to 400 pips before we start joining the decline? Well, this is something we want to look at and see if we could actually join this potential rally that is evolving right now. Now, if we scale down to the 4 hours time frame, and on the 4 hours time frame, what do we have here? Remember, we have this bearish trend line which has been holding price action to the downside since the month of June. We can see this bearish trend line here after connecting the series of lower highs. You can see what I'm talking about. So we had this bearish trend line running, holding price action supported before we saw the breakout of that structure happen during the mid-month of August. Then we can see how price broke out that structure to the upside, came back to retest that trend line. We saw another retest of that trend line here, and we can see around this point again, around this area, price appears to be rejecting that area, giving us a clue that we might be having a reversal pattern that is likely going to be pushing price to the upside. So we might not want to wait for price to get into the structure I identified on the daily time frame before we trade the US oil. So there is a possibility that this could turn out to be a reversal pattern. So, and let's see what has been happening in the last 2 weeks here. We saw this impulsive move to the downside from the $86.50 level. Price came into this area, and what did we see that has been happening here in the last 72 hours? We saw the first rejection of the $76.50 area. Price came back into the $79 area. Price came back down a little bit, but was unable to break below the previous low, giving us a higher low. And when we see a higher low like this, what is our expectation? What rings a bell? Definitely bullish momentum, reversal pattern. These are the things we want to be looking forward to. So we saw this higher low at this point. So what is this saying? Is this going to result into a reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure? Well, this will only be confirmed if the breakout of the neckline happens, and if the breakout of the neckline happens at around the $79 area, a retest of structure is definitely going to be giving us a confirmation that we are going bullish, with a take profit target sitting around the $83 level, which is the area that price broke last week. So we have a breakout of this breakdown of the structure last week. So it's likely that we should be having price come within this area, and we don't know what is going to happen. So we have our take profit there. We want to see how price is going to relate to this level. Are we going to be having multiple rejection of this level that will be sending price going to the downside from here, or are we going to be having a breakout retest of the structure to send price going to the upside? So that we don't know, and because of this, we'll be placing our take profit target around the $83 level. So let me extend the $83 level out a little bit, so it will be our yardstick for take profit target and probably a trend continuation or a reversal pattern in the future. So that is what we have here on the 4 hours time frame. So in order to trade this right now, like I've said, we already have a neckline of the reversal pattern at the $79 area, which we've identified since the beginning of the week. So let's see if price is going to break above that $79 to incite a bullish momentum. So scaling down to the 1 hour time frame, how do we intend to trade? So remember, we had a sell window here, and one thing I want to say here at this point is that we are not going to be buying this US oil as long until a breakout of that $79 happens. So what we're going to do here is to be patient enough to see if we're going to have a significant breakout of the structure. We want to see an engulfing candle taking out all the sell positions around this area. Remember, this is a sell window. Price has been rejecting this area since the beginning of the week. We have seen seller strength at this area. So we want to see buyers taking out all the sell position here. That signal we're looking forward to. And one thing we don't want to do is to get too excited by joining this bullish momentum, as it could be a false one. So what we want to wait for is price to give us further confirmation in the form of a retest of structure, where we want to be looking out for patterns on lower time frame, rejecting the $79 level area, rejecting the sell window area, and then we want to be joining the rally to the upside with a take profit target sitting somewhere around the $83, $84 area, hereby dovetailing to about 400 pips to catch here if price moves as expected. So that is that on the US oil. Remember, this is still a sell window around this area between the $80 area and the $79 area. It's still a very strong sell window, as you can see how price has been relating to that level since the beginning of the week. So as long as we continue to have a rejection of this level to the downside, the selling opportunity is still very, very valid. As long as rejection rejection of that area happens. The only time we want to be thinking, the only condition that will make us think of a bullish momentum here is a significant breakout of this neckline at the $79 area, after which a retest of structure will give us a confirmation to join the rally. I hope you get my explanation very clearly. I told you it's still a selling opportunity here. We're only going to buy the US oil at this point if we see a significant breakout of the $79 level. And at this point, this candle is still running right now, and it's about this candle is about 30 minutes old. We still have 30 minutes for this candle to close. Let's see how this candle is going to close. Is it going to break out the structure significantly? If it does, then we start thinking of a bullish momentum here on the US oil. So let's see how this plays out. If you have any questions regarding what I've just explained so far, feel free to drop in your comments, your inquiries in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help. So let's take the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the charts and see what is happening. Nina, hey Nina, how are you doing today? Good morning. Gbp Jpy is expected to decline. Well, I think, were you in the session when I did the explanation on Gbp Jpy? I just talked about Gbp Jpy like 5 minutes ago. Were you around? Yes, I'm looking at a steady momentum on Gbp Jpy. I just shared that idea like 5-10 minutes ago. Were you around, Nina? Okay, vote one, sell USD Jpy. Of course, we have a selling opportunity on USD Jpy too. I actually shared that setup yesterday, and we are going to take a look at it again today, of course. All right, vote one, just try to be part of the session through to the end of the session, please, so that you don't miss out on our expectations there. What is about next? Sell, buy, please help me. Diverge, which pair are you talking about? Is it which pair are you talking about? Let me know so that I can be of help in that regard. So just 10, good morning to you. How are you? Okay, Nina, yes, you are around. Of course. Okay, that's great. So you are part of it. So let's see how it goes, and we'll go back and check towards the end of the session and see how price action has been going. Okay. So, any questions? Okay, in the absence of no questions, let's move on to the next pair. So the next pair we're going to be looking at is the US tech, and what is happening on the US tech right now. So what was our expectation yesterday on the US tech? We were somewhere around where yesterday? Let's see. We were somewhere around I think around here yesterday. We were around this point yesterday where we took advantage of this bullish momentum. As we said, anything right above the $11,350 area is a bullish signal for us to take advantage of, and we took advantage of this move, and price moved about, how many pips that is, moved about 160 pips thereabout before we saw price break down the structure to the downside here to negate that bullish setup we identified yesterday. So right now, how do we intend to trade this today? And one thing I will say here, I hope you moved your stop loss to break even when price was going to the upside. Please, I made mention of that yesterday. Consider the long-term bearish momentum here. I said if price continue to move in our direction, you move your stop loss to break even. So if you had done that accordingly, of course, you'll be at break even on this pair. So let's look at what is happening on the higher time frame, and remember we are on a demand zone at this point in time, hence we want to be mindful of taking any selling opportunity here as we want to see a significant breakout of that demand zone. I'll be showing you that in a moment what I'm talking about here. So let's scale up to the daily time frame and let's see what is happening. Well, on the daily time frame, we observe that price has been on a very strong bearish momentum since the beginning of the year, and as a result of that, we were able to identify this resulting bearish trend line to connect the series of lower highs. However, something interesting happened since the month of June, where we saw the 11,000 area serving as a demand zone a couple of times. So we saw the first touch of the demand zone here in the month of June, where we saw multiple rejection of this area by the buyers to push price to the upside. You can see we had 1, 2, 3 before this move to the upside happened, and price moved as far as the $13,750 area. And as soon as the decline started, remember we enjoyed this move right from the 13,500 a couple of months ago, as price came back, touched the $12,000 area, and right now price is right within the demand zone that it started in the month of June. So we are right here at this point in time. We are right within a very, very strong demand zone, giving us a clue into a possible bullish momentum that is likely going to be happening from here. That is, price might likely going to respect that bullish trend line one more time to push price to the upside. And on the contrary, there is a possibility that we could be having a breakdown of the structure. That is, if we have a breakdown of that demand zone, price taking out all the buy position at this area, definitely we want to be seeing this as a sell signal. And remember, we don't want to get too excited when we sight signals like this. We want to be patient enough to wait for price to give us a retest of structure, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline. So this is what our expectations are on the US tech. And as at yesterday, we were expecting that price might likely going to respect this demand zone, in the sense that we have a bullish momentum from here. So on the 1 hour time frame, what we did was to identify a structure at around the $11,350 area to guide our action going forward. But right now, we've already had a breakdown of that structure, and this is simply telling us price is likely going bearish, but we don't want to jump into such conclusion at this point in time, considering where we at this point. Remember, we are within a demand zone, and we don't want to jump into any set buying up and selling opportunity here right now, as we want to see how price is going to relate to the zone. If we're going to have a breakdown of that demand zone, that is when we want to be getting ready for selling opportunities here on the US tech. So break down the demand zone, retest of structure is likely going to be giving us that confirmation that we want to be joining the decline here. So we need to be very patient. It's not every time we trade, we wait for market to give us the setup that we are looking for before we join the rally. So it's going to be a very slow process on the US tech. So I would advise that we remain very patient, so that we see the setup line up for us before we want to be joining any potential opportunity here on the US tech. However, looking at the current structure here and looking at how price started this week, I want to be readjusted my key level from the 11,350 area. I will show you why that is. If we look at what happened here since the beginning of the week, price started at around the 11,350 area. We had this where price started here, and what we noticed since the beginning of the week was that anytime price comes within the $11,200 area, we saw multiple rejection by the buyers to push price to the upside. We saw another one here too as well. We saw multiple rejection by the buyers right below around the $11,200 to push price to the upside one more time. We saw another one here during the course of the New York session yesterday, but the strength of the buyers was not as strong as the previous one, as we saw the breakdown of that structure yesterday. So what I'll be doing right now is to readjust the key level to right around the $11,200 level to be our yardstick going into the New York session today. So we have the $11,200 area, considering the fact that this level has been a significant level for buying power since the beginning of the week. So we want to see how price is going to be relating to this level during the New York session today. So if we have a significant breakout of the structure, that is, price breaks significantly well right above this area, then we want to wait for a retest of the structure to look out for buying opportunity to join the rally to the upside. So let's see how price is going to relate with the $11,200 level in the next couple of hours. And like I said, thinking of any bearish momentum here will only happen after a significant breakdown of that demand zone, which we identified on the higher time frame. And if that happens, we wait for a retest of structure. It's the retest of the 11,200, after which we look out for selling opportunities to join the decline to the downside. So let's be very patient here on the US tech, and gradually price will come to us and tell us when to join the potential opportunity. It could be a decline, it could be a rally. Let's see how that goes in the next 24 hours. So if there are any questions, regarding what I've just explained so far, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section, and let's see how I can be of help in that regard. So let's move on. Um, Divert J, I'm yet to see any response regarding my inquiry. I thought, okay. So let's move on to the next pair. The next pair we looked at yesterday is the XAU USD, and the XAU USD was actually moving in our favor, and it moved about 11,600 pips. Sorry, it moved about 2,000 pips in our direction since the last 24 hours. I hope you are very profitable on this trade before these candles. Excuse me, please. Excuse me. So, as at yesterday, we were around this area yesterday. We were around here yesterday, right below the $1,640 level. And one thing I stated here yesterday, that the $1,640 level is going to be our guide for the week. And as long as price continues to rally below the $1,640 level, we want to be looking for selling opportunities. And what happened since the beginning of the week was quite interesting. We saw that we've been having bearish momentum since the beginning of the week. As soon as price gets into the area between the $1,645 area and the $1,650 area, we see sharp rejection around this area, giving us a clue into the strength of the sellers at this point. And anytime price comes within that area, we've been witnessing engulfing bearish candle to the downside. We saw the first one here. I told you I took advantage of this move on Monday, and price came back into this area during the course of the early session of yesterday, and we saw multiple rejection of this area, and I told you to join right below this level, and we joined, and price moved about 2,000 pips in our direction, though it was unable to get to our TP target. But I'm sure you must have taken some profit here on the gold pair before this engulfing candle started. And I think we had the sign of this engulfing candle a couple of hours ago. As you can see, we saw this candle, we saw this shooting star candle, we saw this hammer candle here, which is a sharp rejection of that level at the $1,615 area a couple of hours ago. And definitely we had to move our stop loss to the previous structure, and I personally, I will have been stopped out by now, because I moved my stop loss to somewhere around the $1,620 area, which is about 1,400 pips before this engulfing move started. So if you have been part of this profits journey, kudos to you for being on standby to take advantage of that move. Well, now that we have the scenario right now and we headed into the New York session today, how do we intend to trade the XAU USD? Well, for the sake of those who are not part of the session since the beginning of the week, let's quickly run through the scenario we cited on the higher time frame that led us into making the decision that we made here on the lower time frame. So let's scale up to the daily time frame and let's see what is happening here. So on the daily time frame, I think we went on to the weekly, I guess. Yes, we started on the weekly time frame for the gold, and on the weekly time frame we can see that price has been on a very strong bullish momentum in the last 5 to 6 years, and we have this strong bullish trend line. We have the major bullish trend line here, which is the dark trend line on your screen here. We had price respect that bullish trend line a couple like 4 times before we saw this massive move that started in the month in 2019 that led into this area, and since then price has continued has fallen within a consolidation phase that led back into this temporary bullish trend line. The green dotted line on your screen broke that trend line in the during the course of last week trading session to give us a bearish signal. So now what is going to be our plan going forward? So right now, the most important thing I want to be looking at right now is that temporary bullish trend line, which we identified here. Is the breakdown of this trend line going to be a signal that price is going to be going back into the major bullish trend line we identified earlier, after which structures that will be supporting the trend continuation will happen? That is a very big question mark we want to be asking ourselves. So in order to answer that, we scale down to a much lower time frame like the daily time frame, and let's see what is happening on the daily time frame. So right on the daily time frame here, this is what we have here on the daily time frame, and looking at the current structure, we have here in the last couple of months, we saw this demand zone broken during the during the last week trading session. We saw the breakdown of the structure 2 weeks ago. We saw this breakdown of the structure, and then we saw the breakdown of this area during the course of last week trading session as well, to continue to give us the possibilities of a sell continuation pattern. So with this scenario we identified here, we scale down to the 1 hour time frame where we identified a setup to use to take advantage of the selling momentum we took advantage of yesterday. So this is what we have here. Since the breakdown of that demand zone, remember during the course of last week we had this multiple rejection of the $1,660 area by the buyers to give us to identify that demand zone, but we saw the breakdown of that level during the course of last week trading session to give us that bearish signal. And since the bearish signal happened, that is the breakdown of the demand zone, we saw price move to as far as this area. And from a technical standpoint like this, whenever we cite a breakdown of structure, we expect that price is likely going to come back and do a retest of that structure. So we have the breakdown here. So we are expecting that price is likely going to come back and do a retest of the structure, and that is why we had the sell window here, which also lines up with the bearish trend line we identified on the 4 hours time frame. So is this move going to be that retracement move that is going to lead price right back into this area? That is another question we need to answer to be able to trade the XAUUSD. So right now, this is what we have here. What I will be advising us to do at this point is to remain patient, and let's see how this candle is going to close. So like I said, we have the $1,645 level, which has been rejecting price action since the beginning of the week. So let's see what happens. Is price going to come back into this area to give us another multiple rejection of this level? So I'm still going to have multiple rejection of this area, and if we have that, then it tells us that that area is still very strong for selling opportunities. Then we get prepared to sell the XAUUSD one more time. However, if we have a break above of this area, well, what I'll be advising us to do is to remain patient and wait for price to complete this retracement move right within the $1,660 area, where we want to be looking out for selling opportunities to join the decline to the downside. So this is how I intend to trade the XAUUSD going into the New York session today. So what I'll be saying here is that we remain very patient, and let's wait for price action to give us that leverage to either to join the decline to the downside. So like I said, we have the breakdown of the structure happened here last week, so we expect that price is likely going to come back and do a retest of that structure. So let's wait and see how this candle is going to close right now. Could this turn out to be a reversal pattern that will push price right back into this area, where we look out for selling opportunities one more time? So we need to get ourselves prepared for this. And one thing I also want to share with you here is the Fed Chairman Powell's speech coming up later on today. That is, I think, how many hours from now? That's like 5 hours from now, thereabouts. So this is likely going to have a major impact on the gold pair today. So let's see what happens. So at this point, let's remain patient and see what happens here. So that's that on the XAUUSD. So we want to move on to the next pair, and the next pair we are going to be looking at is the USD Jpy. And on the USD Jpy, since the beginning of the week, price has still continued to oscillate right within the sell window we identify here on the 1 hour time frame. And as you can see, there's nothing much to say here, honestly. Since the breakdown of that trend line here, we had the breakdown. We had a significant breakdown of the trend line here, and then we have this price coming back to do multiple rejection of that trend line, and we can see price is still within the sell window we identified at the beginning of the week. So it's still looking more bearish to me at this point. We are still waiting for that signal, which is likely going to come in the form of a breakdown of structure, where a retest of structure on lower time frame will be sending price crashing to the downside. So we are still waiting for that selling opportunity to come. We are still waiting for that signal to come. Is it going to be during the Fed speech today? That is something we don't know, but let's get ourselves prepared for that opportunity, and we'll be able to take advantage of it when it finally happens. So I will still want to continue to um, remain bearish on the USD JPY as long as price is still within the sell window and we cite a breakdown of the 144.200 area here. Then we want to be looking forward to joining that decline to the downside. However, if as during the New York session today, or probably when the Fed speech happens and we cite a breakout of the supply zone here, remember we had the supply zone identified on the higher time frame. I will scale up to the daily time frame in a moment to show you what I mean, especially for those who are not part of the session yesterday. So if we have a breakout of that structure, then a retest of structure might be a signal to the upside. So as long as price, so in order to make our job easier, I've been able to identify this 144.200 area to guide our action. So we want to be selling the USD Jpy as long as price oscillates right below the 144.200 area. That is a breakdown, retest to join the decline. But if a break above of that level happen of the supply zone, which I'll be showing you in a moment, happens, a retest of structure, then we want to be joining the rally to the upside. So the key level here is our yardstick. If price continues to oscillate right above that area, we don't want to be selling the USD JPY. So that is that. So let's scale up to the daily time frame and let's quickly see what structure we had on the daily time frame that led into us looking at a bearish perspective on the USD Jpy. So here we are on the daily time frame and we can see it's very bullish on the daily time frame, and we had that bullish trend line identified here. And one thing I just want to show us here is this reversal pattern, that is the double bottom structure. And what will happen after the breakout of the neckline of this double bottom structure was a significant bullish momentum that led price right into the 145 area. And something interesting I need to show you here is that since the breakout of the neckline at the 135 Japanese yen area in the month of August, we are yet to see price to come back and do a retest of that structure. Remember, from a technical standpoint, whenever we cite a double bottom structure like this, we expect price to break out, do a retest of that structure, give us further confirmation of a trend continuation to the upside. But till this moment, that is yet to happen. And one thing interesting happened around the 145 Japanese yen area. We can see how sellers appear to have gripped the market around this point. Every attempt by the buyers to push price further to the upside has been met with stiff resistance at this area. So with this in view, I'm thinking that this is likely going to be the insinuate a bearish momentum in such a way that we have price come back into the neckline area, or probably the bullish trend line we identified here on the daily time frame, with the intention of a trend continuation to the upside. So because of the multiple rejection of the 145 area, we scale down to the 4 hours time frame. We identify the sell window around this area, which is a supply zone, and we can see since the beginning of the month, we can see how sellers have continued to reject any bullish potential here to give us that strength, give us a clue into the strength of the sellers at this point. And since the beginning of the week, we can see how this area price has been consolidating within this area. We have been dragging up and down. Participants are yet to know what to do. And one thing I could say from this structure here, the indecision here is probably participants actually waiting for a catalyst that will incite that huge movement that is going to probably happening very soon. And it could be the Fed speech that is happening in the next 5 hours that will likely decide where price might be heading. So we want to get ourselves prepared for this possible move to happen. I am of the opinion that this move is going to be very massive. It could be to the downside and it could also be to the upside as well. So in order to take advantage of that move, I have identified a key level here at the 144.200 area to use as a yardstick during the New York session, or probably when the Fed speech is going to be happening. So like I said, if price breaks out the supply zone here, that's the supply zone I was showing you on the 1 hour time frame. If we have a significant breakout of that supply zone, definitely I want us to see that as a bullish signal, as in when I said breakout of that structure, I mean a breakout of that structure where price closes above the supply zone. We can see price is yet to close above that supply zone since the beginning of this month, though we had a huge move during the last week trading session that led into the 146 area, but was unable to close right above that area, as we saw the sharp rejection that led into this bearish engulfing candle that took price right back into the neckline area. So if not until I see price break above this A level, closes above that level, then I want to be seen as a bullish signal, where a retest of structure will give us a further confirmation to join the rally to the upside. But if that does not happen and price continue to reject the supply zone here, then we want to be looking definitely at a bearish momentum here. And from a long-term perspective, if we are going to be looking at this, we want to be looking at the neckline area here, or the bullish trend line here as our take profit target. That is somewhere around the 137 area and the 135 area as our take profit target, which is about, let's see how many pips that is, a whopping 800 pips to catch here if price moves in that direction. However, since we're only looking at this from a weekly perspective, we want to see how price is going to play out this week. We don't want to be too ambitious here, so I'm thinking that putting our take profit target right around the 142.500 area and the 140.500 area looks more reasonable, as we want to see how price is going to relate to this zone in order to make another decision. So if we're going to be having a breakdown of this 142.500 area, a retest of structure is likely going to be giving us a confirmation to add more position to our existing trade. And if price comes within this area and we start seeing multiple rejection of this level, and then we know that probably a bullish momentum is coming in at this point. So that is why I'm saying we should place our take profit target around this area. Let's see how price action is going to relate to that level. I hope I'm very clear on this. So let's see how this goes in the next 24 hours. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section. So let's quickly move on to the next pair we deliberated on yesterday. I think that's going to be the last pair for today. That's the Chf Jpy. And on the Chf Jpy, what was our expectation yesterday? Well, what I told you yesterday was quite simple. I told you that we need to be very patient at this point. As we can see, since the beginning of the week, price has been caught within a channel right within the 146.500 area and the 145.250 area since the beginning of the week, giving us a clue of an indecision in this market right now. And what we're going to be waiting for is a signal that is likely going to happen in the form of a breakout of that structure, or breakout to the upside, or a breakdown of the structure, which is a breakdown and retest to the downside here, and which has not happened in the last 72 hours here. So in as much as we are expecting a bearish momentum here on the Chf Jpy, we still need to be very patient to wait for a signal to happen. And like I said, if a breakout of the 146.500 area happens, a retest to structure, well, if you are a counter trend trader and you're comfortable taking counter trend opportunities, you might want to take advantage of this move right into the sell window here, where you move your stop loss accordingly as price moves in your direction. However, for me as a long-term trader, I'll be waiting for price to come within my sell window here, where I want to be looking for selling opportunities around this area, which might come in the form of a reversal pattern or multiple rejection of this area to join the trend continuation to the downside. And as you can see, last week we had that impulsive move to the downside, which I told you is as a result of the Bank of Japan's intervention in the FX markets to reduce the diminishing value of the Japanese yen. So we don't know if this move is going to be a stepping stone for a further selling momentum. So let's see if price will come within this area, the neckline of that reversal pattern, where we want to be looking out for selling opportunities to join the decline to the downside. So this is what I'm looking forward to on the Chf Jpy. And I made mention of something here yesterday. I said if this area was broken to the downside, we wait for a retest of structure, we join the decline with a take profit target sitting around the 143 and the 142 area, which is the bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame. I said if price continues to move in our direction and price moves within the demand zone, which we identified at around the 144.500 area, please move your stop loss to break even, so that you don't get stopped out, as we never can tell if price is going to reject this level one more time to the upside. So if we now finally have a breakdown retest of this demand zone, then we want to be adding more position to our existing trade here on the CHF Jpy. So that is how we intend to trade the CHF Jpy for this week, and I think at this point I will have to call it a day. However, before I do, let's quickly do a quick recap of what we talked about today. I think we were able to do between 7 to 8 PS today. Quite a lot of opportunities lining up for us in the New York session today. So let's quickly run through our expectations today, and then I can see Diva DJ asking for the XNG USD. Well, I'm so sorry, I'll not be able to treat that at this point, as we did something on XAU USD, and you might want to look at that and use that as a leverage for taking advantage of a trade on the commodities. So the first pair we look at today was the Gbp Jpy, where I told you I was looking for selling opportunities here, and it appears the price is still within that entry level that we identified on the 1 hour time frame here. So what we see here in the last 1 hour is a shooting star candle giving us a clue of the selling pressure at this point. So what I'm saying here, I said below the 154.500 area looks more positive for us to be selling the Gbp Jpy. So I hope you're prepared to catch this move when it finally happens. As long as price is oscillating right below the 154.500 area, we are looking for a selling opportunity. In order to guide our actions, we identify this key level at the 154.500 area to give us that leverage for joining that move to the downside. So we have a take profit target right around the 149 area, which is about 490 pips to catch here if price moves accordingly. However, I made mention of a condition that if we have a significant breakout of this trend line, that is price closes above that level, that's likely going to turn out to be a bullish momentum, where bullish signal rather, and we look out for a retest to structure to join the rally to the upside. But since the beginning of the week, we have been witnessing multiple rejection of the 156.00 area to give us a clue of how strong the sellers are at this point. So that's the reason why we are looking for selling opportunities here on this Gbp Jpy. So we moved on to talk about the Gbp Usd as well, which also has the same setup with what we have on the Gbp Jpy. So it appears the GBP pairs are looking more bearish for this week, and then we can see how the 1.08500 area has been a selling niche for participants in this market. We can see anytime price come within this area, we have been seeing selling pressure from that point. So I was able to identify an area at around the 1.06800 area, which is going to be our yardstick for today. So as long as price is oscillating right below the 1.06800 area, we want to be looking for selling opportunities on the Gbp USD. However, if a break above this level happen, retest of structure, we want to be joining a rally to the upside, because that a break above will negate of this area will negate the 1.08500 area, which has been a selling niche for participants in the past. But I'm not sure that is going to be happening at this point in time, as we have a very strong bearish momentum holding price action in the last couple of months here on the Gbp Usd. So let's see how this goes in the next 24 hours, and definitely we shall be coming back here tomorrow to do a review of what we did here today. So next we move on to the US oil, and on the US oil we were looking forward to a selling momentum on US oil since the beginning of the week. We took some profits here yesterday, around 200 pips. I had two positions running, so we took about around 200 pips for me. So I'm not sure how many pips you took, but we're still expecting a selling momentum to happen here. However, something interesting happened in the last 24 hours here, which called my attention to this, and we started thinking of a possible reversal pattern is likely going to be happening here. We saw the multiple rejection of the $77 level. We can see this low here. We saw multiple rejection here, and we can see that price was unable to break below the previous low, which is here. And when we see a higher low like this, we expect that price might likely be evolving into a reversal pattern. And if we zoom out and see what has happened since last week, we saw the breakdown of the structure last week we saw the breakdown of the $83 level. Price came to this point, and then we saw this move, we saw this rejection, a higher low. Then definitely what it looks like, price is evolving into a reversal pattern. So what happens is this: we want to wait for price to break out of this structure that's around the $79 area to give us a bullish signal. And if price breaks above the $79 area, that means buyers are strong enough to take out all the sell position here. But remember, we don't want to get too excited at the sight of such a breakout. We want to wait for market to give us a confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of structure, after which we scale down to our lower time frame to look out for patterns on lower time frame to support a trend continuation to the upside. So what I'm saying here is that if a breakout of the $79 happen, that is, price closes right above that $79 level with an engulfing candle, that is a signal. But we don't want to get too excited. We want to wait for price to give us further confirmation in the form of a retest of that level before we join the rally to the upside. And if a rally to the upside happens here, where will our take profit target be? Well, it's obvious. We have a structure around the $83 level, which was broken during the course of last week's trading session here. We want to see how price is going to relate to this level. So what we are going to be doing is to put our take profit target at the $83 area. Let's see how price is going to relate to this level. Are we going to be having multiple rejection of this level to send price to the downside, or are we going to be having a breakout of the structure where a retest will be giving us confirmation to join the rally? So we don't know what is going to happen afterwards, but one thing for sure is that we have a structure at $83 level. Let's place our take profit target there, and let's see how price action is going to be. So that's around 400 pips to catch if price moves in that direction. However, if we do not have a breakout of that neckline, that is the $79 level, and we continue to witness multiple rejection of this area, remember, we're still within the sell window. This is the area where price started this week, and since the beginning of the week, price has continued to find lower lows from this point. So if price continues to reject this area, we continue to look for our selling opportunity, and if price moves in our favor, we move our stop loss accordingly to protect our position here. So that is that on the US oil. Then we went on to talk about the US tech. Now on the US tech, what is our expectation on the US tech? Well, remember, we are within a very strong demand zone here. Remember, I was able to identify a demand zone on the daily time frame. Let me show you for the sake of clarity. So on the daily time frame here, we have a demand zone which has been respected in the past. We had one at one point in the month of July. We had price respect that demand zone, and right now price is within that demand zone. Is this demand zone going to be respected one more time to push price to the upside? This is what we don't know at this point. Or are we going to be having a significant breakdown of that demand zone where a retest of structure will give us a confirmation to join the decline? So that is what we don't know, and in order to get that, we were able to scale down to a much lower time frame where we begin to see things more clearly. So on the lower time frame, we can see this consolidation phase right around that demand zone here. So what I did was to identify a key level at the 11,200 area to guide our action. So what we saw since the beginning of the week is price has been respecting these areas by the buyers. We can see this level has been respected by the buyers. So until we finally saw a breakdown and multiple rejection of that level during the early hours of today. So what I'm saying here is that we want to remain patient, though from this structure here it gives us a clue of a selling momentum, as we saw a breakdown, multiple rejection of this level. You might be thinking of selling, but for me, I'll be advising that we hold on, as we are still within a very strong demand zone, which I showed you on the higher time frame. So what I want to see is a significant breakdown of that demand zone. So if I say a significant breakdown of that demand zone, then that will be a signal that we are going bearish. Then we wait for price to give us a confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of structure before we can now start joining that decline. So it is very, very important that we remain very patient here on the US tech, and let's wait for the market to tell us what to do. Then we went on to talk about the XAUUSD, where we were able to make some money here on the XAUUSD as price continued to decline to the downside. And what I showed you here on the gold was simply a selling momentum. As we can see, since the beginning of the week, price has continued to reject the $1,645 area and the $1,640 area since the beginning of the week to give us a clue of a very strong selling momentum here. So selling the gold is still very valid here as long as price continue to oscillate right below the $1,640 level. However, if we have a break above of this level, well, you might want to be taking a counter trend opportunity, but I'll be advising that we remain patient and wait for price to come back into the structure that was broken last week. Remember, we had this demand zone here broken last week, so we expect that price is likely going to come back into this area to do a retest of that structure to send price crashing to the downside. So on the gold, we're still looking very bearish on the gold, so let's see how price action plays out. As long as we are below this area, we look for selling opportunity, but if a breakout happens, it doesn't change my bias in any way, as I will wait for price to come within this area to look out for selling opportunities to join the decline, with a take profit target sitting around the $1,610 area and the $1,600 area. So that's that on the XAUUSD, and then we went on to talk about the USD Jpy, and what we have here on the USD Jpy in the last 72 hours is quite interesting. We can see how sellers has continued to how price has continued to oscillate right within our sell window here, giving us a clue into the strength of the sellers here, as every attempt by the buyers to break right above this level has been met with stiff resistance. And one thing also that this thing also tells us is that there is an indecision in this market, and it appears participants in this market are waiting for a catalyst that will be guiding their actions going forward. And I showed you something on the economic calendar today, that we have the Fed chair speech coming up in 5 hours time, and let's see how this is going to affect the USD Jpy. So to make our job easier, I was able to identify a key level at the 144.200 area, where I said a breakdown retest of the structure during the course of the New York session today will be giving us a signal of a bearish momentum. However, consider the long-term bullish momentum here. Putting that into consideration, if price breaks out of the supply zone in the nearest future, that is, price breaks out significantly well, closing right above the supply zone, then definitely we want to be seeing this as a bullish signal, but we don't want to get too excited, as we want to wait for price to come back, do a retest of structure before we join the decline, the rally to the upside. So that is what we are looking at. But from the look of things here, I'm still thinking that the bearish momentum is still very visible here, considering how price has been caught within this channel in a while, and right now we are within the supply zone. We have various parameters supporting this. We are within the supply zone. We identify on the daily time frame, and if you look at the breakdown of this bullish trend line here, we see that price has come back to do a retest of that bullish trend line. So from a technical standpoint, whenever we sight a breakout of structure, we expect price to come back and do a retest of that structure to give us a trend continuation to the downside, and it appears what is happening right now lines up with that expectation. So let's see how price plays out in the New York session today. Then we went on to close the day with the Chf Jpy, where we saw how price has been caught within a channel between the 146.500 area and the 145.250 area since the beginning of the week. Though we had this bearish move last week, and we expecting that price is likely going to come back into the sell window here, where we want to be looking forward to selling opportunities to join the decline to the downside. And if you look at the sell window here, it lines up with the neckline at the 148 Japanese yen. We can see the sell window lines up with the 148 Japanese yen area, which is the neckline of the reversal pattern that we identified on the 1 hour time frame. We had like a triple top structure here, so we had a neckline there, and it appears the sell window lines up with that neckline area. So let's see how price action plays out in the next 24 hours. And for those who are counter trend traders, it's more likely that price will break above the 146.500 area with the intention of going into the sell window here. So if a breakout of the structure happen, retest to structure, then you might want to be looking to take advantage of that counter trend right into the 148 Japanese yen area, where I will be looking forward to a reversal pattern to join the decline to the downside. So we have a counter trend opportunity here. If you're a counter trend trader, We have about 200 pips to catch here, between 100 and 200 pips to catch here. So if you're a counter trend trader, you want to join that, you could take advantage of that. But make sure that as soon as price moves in your direction, you want to be moving your stop loss to protect your position against any sudden pullback that is likely going to be happening here. You know, we have this impulsive move to the downside, and this is more or less a bearish signal for us. So that is that for today, and I hope I was able to put more clarity into how we intend to trade this pairs today. I was able to paint all possible scenarios that is likely going to be happening on all of these pairs, so that we can get ourselves prepared in case price moves in any direction. So we need to be very dynamic, and that is why I tried as much as possible to paint out all the possible scenarios that is likely going to be happening. So let's get ourselves prepared, be on standby to take advantage of whatever moves that happens today. And put in mind that the Fed speech is coming up in 5 hours time from now. Be prepared also, as the structure we have in the market right now might be tending towards expecting a release to make a decision today. So on this note, I want to call it a day. I wish you best of luck during the New York session today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, same place, Extreme Speed Live. Let's come again together as a family to look at the market and plan against the New York session tomorrow. So on this note, I wish you a wonderful day and best of luck. Bye bye.